This is Rob Humphrey, and I am with Taylor Goldsmith of Dawes. How you doing today, Taylor?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good, yeah. The new Dawes record, All Your Favorite Bands, will be out on June 2nd. Also, Dawes going to be in Indianapolis at Farm Bureau Insurance Lawn with Hosier. That show is June 11th. The new record, Taylor, it's your fourth one. So when you guys went into the studio to record it, did you guys approach recording this different? Maybe learn some things from the past?
You know, we've never really thought too hard about how this record going to be different than anything else. It's always been what's going to best represent where we're at right now and what's going to be, in our eyes, better than anything we've done before. And one thing that we've learned is that we can trust ourselves to just play the records live, I can sing with the band, I can play the solos with the band, and Tay can play two keyboards at once, and it actually did something for the record that we really feel like, helped it or gave it this sort of this life to it that our other records might not have to the same extent. The other records, which, we're obviously extremely proud of, they have a little bit more of a studio quality, which is a good thing. Whereas with this one, it feels like a session, It feels like we got in there and got out, which is the way it was.
It has an interesting title. Where'd that come from, the title of the record, All Your Favorite Bands?
There's a song on the record called All Your Favorite Bands, and
okay.
The main line is, may all your favorite bands stay together. And we really felt like that was a sentiment that really represented this batch of songs really well, and I feel like this whole record, you could kind of sense the smile on our collective faces in playing it, and in just the way the songs roll out, and we felt like that really accurately captured the whole feeling of the whole thing.
Your band, Dawes, is sort of an extension or grew out of a previous band you were in called Simon Dawes. And I just have to ask, because I got you on the phone and I've wanted to know for a while, where did that name come from? Simon Dawes, an interesting name for a band.
Well, we were 15, so, don't hold it against us. But basically, Blake Mills and me were Simon Dawes for a long time. And when we were 15 and wanted to start this band, we're like, well, what should we call it? And we both were really fascinated by the fact that he was born with the name Simon Matthew Mills, and then his parents changed it to Blake. And I was born with the name Taylor Goldsmith, and my parents changed it to Taylor Zachary Goldsmith. And so we both had these names that were sort of kicked to the curb. So we're like, well, why don't we just put those together? It ended up just making for a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I can imagine, but it is a good story. It's always nice to have a good story to go along with your name. Your brother is in the band, Griffin. Is he older or younger?
He's younger. He's 5 years younger than me. I'm 29. He's 24.
So you were charged with his sort of musical education then, right? Keeping him away from all the bad stuff and steering him in the right direction?
I guess at one point, he definitely, in my opinion, was the coolest kid, had the best taste of any, 13-year-old, listening to Procol Harum and Steely Dan.
Well, that's pretty cool, yeah. For 13, that's not bad at all. You guys are playing in the band together. You guys ever get into it? Because you always hear these, I always think, whenever I see siblings in a band, I always think, uh-oh, because that seems to never work out. You guys doing okay so far?
It's funny because, I feel like it would really behoove us to fight just for the sake of the story, but the reality is we get along great.
Yeah, you got to get out there and mix it up. You get in the tabloids that way, I guess. Throughout your career, you guys have played with a lot of legendary artists. You were on the road with Bob Dylan. I believe I saw you played with Alison Krauss and Jackson Browne. When you're with artists who have sustained careers like they have for as long as they have, are there certain lessons you take away? Did you learn anything from those guys?
We really just learned what it looks like to be committed your whole career, You see so many bands that, and I'm sure there's a part of this in us early on, where it's really just about making that one record and getting on tour. And you don't really think about staying on tour. And you don't think about 10 years in how motivated you are and how ambitious you have to be to stay in the game. And that's something that being around guys like Jackson or Ben Montench or just folks that we've had the pleasure of getting to meet or work with, that's something that, you can just tell about them right away. It's like an aura. It's like, wow, these people are truly committed, and they always will be, to, chasing down the music.
Right. When you were on tour with Bob Dylan, did you get to touch the Oscar?
No, unfortunately, didn't get to touch the Oscar. I didn't even notice it until a few shows in. I watched every show, but then it was like a week or two in. I was like, what is that thing?
Yeah, it sits on what does it sit on top of the piano? Is that right? I'm
Yeah,
trying to
I
remember.
looked at least the few nights that I was catching it. It looked like it was on like the bass amp or something.
You do most of the writing for the band, or all of the writing for the band. So I wanted to delve. Can you talk a little bit about your writing process? I mean, where do these songs come from? Is it just life experience, or does it come from various places?
I guess it's various places. It's definitely life experience, but it's more like life thoughts. It's like a lot of this stuff I haven't even really experienced or dealt with in any way. So it's really just how I feel about certain things told through stories that I didn't go through.
Right. Is it difficult though to put yourself then in that situation and sort of see it from somebody else's perspective?
Absolutely, but I feel like it's imperative to being a songwriter, or else you're just going to torture yourself. And it's it's nothing I'm proud of, but I feel like every songwriter knows what it is, or every artist knows what it is to kind of hack it away at yourself, exploit your own emotions and experiences, and then all of a sudden you find yourself chasing down those bad feelings in order to cultivate some sort of song from it. So I think it's important for a songwriter to learn how to have a life that one's enjoying and make the right decisions for yourself and spend time around the people you should be spending time around, but at the same time know how to access the bigger picture and maybe the darker experiences and darker thoughts, but not let it torture you.
Are you a guy who finds that he's writing all the time, sort of in your head, if nothing else? Is it a hard process for you to shut off?
No, it's definitely not.
No?
If anything, I don't ever want to. I hope I never do. I love listening for an extra second to something a friend says and wondering like, oh, that could be a good song or not. And the more that I have that antenna up, the happier I am. So I don't mind always being always on the lookout for the next tune.
Yeah. Do you find that do you write by yourself? Is it you in a room alone, or do the other guys in the band come over, or you kick things around? How does it work usually? I know every song's probably a little different.
There's some co-writes, but I typically just write by myself. And my brother, the drummer, he's very involved with how a song. He doesn't write, but he's very hip to what makes a song good, and so he's always very helpful with how to structure something and what lines are working and what lines aren't. So it's a very supportive and healthy process that we have, but I definitely do the writing by myself.
But the other guys in the band, they do have some input, I assume, at some point when you get to the studio or whatever?
Like, yeah, exactly. It's like arrangementally and and just what kind of song it's going to be. Sometimes I'll just have this loose song on acoustic guitar, and I have no idea if it's going to be loud and fast or slow and quiet, and they always have a very good intuition for the way it should be performed, and I like to stay out of their way in that sense because being in a band, this is a means to express all four of us, not just me and my songs. So sometimes it'll take a total left turn and be a completely different song than I would have thought, and I always love when that happens.
Yeah. Who were some of your inspirations as a songwriter? Who do you look up to?
It's always changing, but what always ends up happening is I fall into a relationship with a songwriter that I can't get out of, and that's all I really want to listen to for 6 months or something. And I've had that with Joni Mitchell or Paul Simon or Willie Nelson or Warren Zevon or Bob Dylan, and right now it's with Mike Scott from the Waterboys. I'm really fascinated by the way he writes, how good his songs are, and so that's kind of how it's always been, and it's always just shifting, and sometimes it'll come back around to artists. Like recently, I just was in a big Bob Dylan phase yet again, which I'm sure is not that surprising for any songwriter. But yeah, it's typically one at a time, and I sort of just try to get everything I can out of listening to that artist.
All right. Well, thanks for taking some time. I know you're busy, and we'll let you go. The new record from Dawes, All Your Favorite Bands, will be out June 2nd. It is their 4th album. And, of course, the band will be with Hosier at Farm Bureau Insurance Lawn in Indianapolis. That show is June 11th. Taylor, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thanks for having me.